She called the cops and screamed, "Arrest him!" But I was standing on my own land right in front of my cabin. Her voice cut through the air, sharp and bitter, while her finger pointed at me like I was some criminal. I tightened my grip on the worn-out bag in my hand, refusing to look away. Behind her, the group of strangers she had invited into my cabin watched with half-hidden smirks, sipping drinks at my table like they owned the place. My jaw clenched as I scanned their faces. Complete strangers making themselves comfortable in the cabin I built with my own hands. The red dress she wore fluttered in the breeze, but nothing could hide the fury burning in her eyes. She didn't just look angry, she looked entitled, as if the land, the water, the very air was hers to control. "You don't belong here," she spat, her voice cracking with rage. I took one step forward, calm but firm. "This is my home, and you're trespassing." The cops by the car exchanged looks, unsure. For a moment, even they couldn't tell who was telling the truth. The officer nearest to us stepped out of the car, adjusting his belt like he was already bored. "Ma'am, can you explain what's happening here?" he asked politely. She turned on him with sudden sweetness, her voice dripping fake concern. "Officer, he broke into my property. He's dangerous. You need to take him away before he hurts someone." My fists curled at my sides, not out of anger but out of disbelief. She was lying so easily, like she had rehearsed it 100 times. The strangers at the table laughed quietly, one of them even raising a glass to toast her boldness. I could feel their eyes on me, mocking, daring me to explode. Instead, I pulled a folded paper from my jacket pocket and held it up. "That's interesting," I said slowly, "because the deed says otherwise." The officer hesitated, looking from me to her, caught in the middle. For a second, her mask slipped. Her lips twitched. Her eyes widened, before she quickly recovered and shouted, "That's a fake! Don't listen to him!" My heart pounded, not from fear, but from the familiar rush of battle. She didn't know it yet, but I wasn't the type of man who surrendered without a fight. The second officer moved closer, narrowing his eyes as if he wasn't buying her story so easily. But before he could even speak, she stormed toward my cabin door and yanked out a crumpled paper taped to it. "Here!" she shouted, waving it high like proof. "This is the HOA violation notice. He doesn't pay dues, he doesn't follow rules, he has no right to stay here." The paper was nothing but a cheap printout with a fake logo, but she held it like it was a court order. The crowd behind her clapped and cheered, feeding her arrogance. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Strangers sitting on my porch, eating my food, celebrating my humiliation. For a second, anger burned through me, but then a strange calm settled in. She had made one mistake too many. Slowly, I took out my phone and tapped the screen. The cabin's security cameras had been recording every second, every lie, every trespass. The screen glowed as the footage played, the same red dress woman breaking into my cabin with her guests, laughing as she poured wine from my shelf. I turned the phone toward the officers and said quietly, "Tell me again, who's the criminal here?" The moment the footage played, the officers froze. The laughter on the screen was undeniable, her voice clear as she bragged. "He'll never come back, this place is mine now." For a heartbeat, silence wrapped around the lake. But then she snapped, rushing forward, trying to snatch the phone from my hand. "That's fake!" she screamed, her voice shrill and desperate now. The officers stepped between us, forcing her back, but she didn't stop. Her eyes darted wildly. Her face flushed red as the strangers at the table grew restless. One of them muttered, "Karen, calm down!" But she spun on him too, barking, "Shut up! You're all witnesses. Say it's true." The desperation in her tone told me everything. She knew the walls were closing in. Still, she wasn't finished. With shaking hands, she pointed at the officers. "He's dangerous. He's military. He has weapons hidden here." The word military hung in the air like a spark ready to ignite. Both officers stiffened, their hands instinctively brushing their holsters. My chest rose and fell slowly, my eyes never leaving hers. She thought she could twist my past into her weapon, but she had no idea how much truth hid behind her reckless words. The officers looked at me sharply, their bodies tense, waiting for me to deny it. But instead of fear, a small smile tugged at my lips. "She's right about one thing," I said evenly, my voice steady as stone. "I served. I fought for this country while she was busy printing fake notices." Her jaw dropped, but I didn't stop. I pulled out a worn leather wallet and flipped it open, showing my veteran ID card. The officer nearest to me leaned in, his eyes softening with recognition. "Marine Corps?" he asked quietly. I nodded once. The shift in energy was instant. The respect in his tone was undeniable. Karen, however, wasn't done. She stomped her heel into the dirt and shouted, "Don't let him fool you! He's dangerous. He's violent." But her words were cut short when the second officer spoke firmly. "Ma'am, impersonating HOA authority is a serious crime. You'd better have real proof." For the first time, she faltered, her voice cracking as her lies started to crumble. I stood taller, not because I needed their approval, but because the truth was finally catching up to her. Still, I knew she wasn't the type to surrender without one last dirty move. Just when it seemed the officers were about to turn the heat on her, Karen's scream pierced the air. She stumbled backward, then clutched her arm, crying out, "He hit me! He attacked me!" The words sliced through the quiet lake like a blade. My eyes widened in disbelief. She was staging an assault right there in front of everyone. She fell to the ground, sobbing dramatically, as if invisible wounds had appeared out of nowhere. "Arrest him!" she wailed, pointing at me with trembling fingers. The strangers at the table gasped, some standing as if her performance had fooled them too. One of the officer's hands hovered near his cuffs, his doubt returning. My pulse hammered, not with fear, but with fury at the cruelty of her lie. She had crossed every line, fake notices breaking into my cabin, twisting my past, but now she was willing to destroy my name with a crime I hadn't committed. I stayed rooted, refusing to flinch. "Check the cameras again," I said coldly, my voice carrying over her cries. "Every second is recorded. And if you dare compare her act with the footage, you'll see the truth." For the first time, her sobs faltered, a flicker of panic in her eyes. The officer, who had been holding back, finally grabbed my phone and replayed the footage from the exact moment she claimed I hit her. The screen showed me standing still, arms at my side, while Karen suddenly staggered back and threw herself to the ground like an actress on a cheap stage. The officer's jaw tightened. He turned the screen toward the crowd and gasps rippled through them. Even her so-called guests stepped away, embarrassed now that the lie was undeniable. "You lied to us?" one of them muttered angrily. Karen scrambled up, her hair messy, her face pale. No, it's edited. He tricked all of you," she cried. But her voice cracked under the weight of her own fear. The senior officer stepped forward, his voice sharp and final. "Ma'am, you've crossed into criminal territory. False report. Trespassing, impersonation." The words hit her harder than any blow. She tried to protest, but no one listened this time. My chest rose slowly, relief mixing with quiet pride, as justice finally started to tip in my favor. Yet deep inside, I knew the fight wasn't just about me. It was about protecting the very idea of freedom that people like her thought they could crush. The officers stepped closer to her, their voices firm. "You're under arrest for filing a false police report, trespassing and impersonating authority." The sound of handcuffs clicking shut cut through the evening, air like thunder after a long storm. Karen's protests turned into desperate shrieks, but this time no one believed her. Her guests backed away in silence, some even slipping toward their cars, ashamed to be part of her scheme. I stood quietly, not gloating, not celebrating, just breathing the heavy air of truth finally revealed. One officer turned to me, his tone softer now. "Sir, thank you for your service. You don't deserve this kind of treatment." I nodded, my gaze drifting toward the calm waters of the lake, where the sun was dipping low. My voice was steady when I finally spoke. "I didn't fight for this country just to be told I can't stand on my own land." The words hung in the air, powerful and final. Justice wasn't just served, it was felt. And as the police car pulled away with Karen inside, I knew one thing for certain: freedom always belongs to those willing to defend it.